Well, if you're watching this video, you're probably in a situation where, help, I'm getting bombed, I don't know what to pick, or something along those lines. So today we're answering that question. Which one of these doctrines is best designed for shooting down fighters? Which one is best designed for bombing? And which one is designed for CAS more than anything? No, I mean bombing is in strategic bombing and CAS is in enemy troops. So let's go ahead and start talking about this. First off, I want to thank all my Patreons and the supporters of the channel, as it means a ton to me of all the support you guys have been giving me lately. Seriously, thank you all so much for that. So let's talk about this. What is the main differences between these three doctrines? We're going to be covering which one's designed for what specific missions, which one give you the most bonuses for each different type of bombing, and finally, which one is designed for your specific situation, which I will cover a few specific situations like you're trying to advance into enemy territory but you can't get air superiority, you're trying to bomb the enemy and you can't get air superiority, stuff like that. So let's get into it. Now, before we get into the video's main part about discussing what does each air doctrine do, there's a couple things we need to cover. They're very, very, very important. Because I'm going to go over what numbers you guys are going to get with different doctrines, it's really important for you guys to understand what each one of these does. So let's go ahead and get to that part really quick. Now, fire detection is going to be incredibly important because of this bonus right here. What does fire detection actually do? It's kind of obvious that, okay, well, that just means that they can find other planes. But here's the real weird thing about it. Fire detection works like this. If you have 1,000 planes in an air wing, right? And that 1,000 plane air wing is looking for targets, and they finally find an air wing of about, say, 80 fighters. Not all of your 1,000 are going to be engaged in the battle. That's kind of obvious, but here's something you didn't know. Out of those 1,000, you might only have a couple hundred really actually engage the enemy planes in combat. How do you combat that? That is through fighter detection. The fire detection will go up or down, and the fire detection will go up based on radar, your little bonuses, and your doctrines and all that here. And then the more fighter detection you have, the more of your planes will actually engage the enemy fighters in a single air battle. Next, ground support. So ground support is kind of obvious, I would assume, but it's a little bit more complicated than just kind of being obvious. Ground support bonuses will actually where is it? There it is. Basically, what'll happen is if you have a unit in combat and then your airplanes are actually doing CAS missions while in that combat, based on the ground support bonuses, that is how much more damage your dive bombers and your CAS and tactical bombers will deal to the enemy ground target. And it's not just damage alone, but it also damages the organization. So if you have a really big ground support bonus, your CAS can actually sometimes completely disrupt and destroy the organization, and your ground units will barely fight, but the dive bombers will do most of the damage. Naval efficiency bonuses, obviously, that just increases the damage done to ships. Intercept missions are a little bit different. They kind of just increase the attack, defense, and the agility of the air wing. Next, you have air superiority, which is really the biggest one. Air superiority is probably the single-handedly most important, in my opinion, type of bonus you can get, because just air superiority alone will injure the enemy ground forces. I know that sounds weird, but how it works is if you're in combat and you have an air superiority bonus over an enemy, it ranges the different percentages based on your air superiority. So for example, you might see you have 100% air superiority, and the enemy ground unit on the ground will take damage in combat by like 25% more just because you have air superiority. That doesn't involve you actually bombing it or anything. That is just having air superiority alone. You can inflict more damage on them with your ground units and not even have to fight them with a CAS or anything. That just gives them more damage. So if you have like a 40% air superiority bonus, you might get up to a 20 to 30% more air superiority bonus. They might be working on a half kind of penalty. So that is incredibly helpful. Next, I talked about agility a little bit. Basically, the main idea behind agility is it causes damage in the air. So if you have more agility over the enemy, then you'll receive less damage than they will. And if you don't have air superiority or you don't have an agility bonus, then basically it's kind of tied. But if they have one over you, you can receive way more damage. And if it's maxed out, I think the agility is around 70%. damage. So that means if they have max agility over you that they can get, they can give you in combat a 70% more damage penalty in the air combat. So now that that's been said, let's cover these doctrines, huh? Now let's talk about the main ideas behind these doctrines, and then we're going to cover what bonuses all of them have in pretty much together. I was going to say in general, but all together. So, strategic destruction. This is the mindset that you're going to be using only two types of planes, fighters and strategic bombers. You can use some casts and stuff with it, but it doesn't really give many bonuses for that. I think it's just this one right here. The rest are just bonuses for your fighters and your strategic bombers and naval efficiency bonuses, which it's only one, so it's kind of like, you can take it or leave it. But, so, this one gives bonuses, like I said, fire detection, air superiority, interception detection, all that kind of stuff. We'll talk about all that in a minute. Next, we have battlefield support. This is the idea that you're only going to be using fighters, tactical bombers, and casts. So this would really be good for Germany, but it's mostly made for the cast units. So basically, if you're going to be using casts to try to move your army up, stuff like that, we'll get to that in a minute. And then we have operational integrity, which is going to be the one you want to use if you are being bombed into submission or you're fearing that you're going to be losing the air war and you need as many bonuses you can get to shoot down enemy planes. So now, let's talk about the bonuses each one of these doctrines have altogether, and then we'll determine which one is completely for in every situation. So fighter detection, strategic destruction gets 10%, battlefield support gets 15%, and this one over here for operational integrity gets 20%. So if you want fire detection, you want basically to find all the enemy planes you can, operational integrity. Ground support, the middle one here, battlefield support, gives you a 40% bonus if you complete all of the doctrines in here. This can give you up to a 40% bonus for that. Both of these other two can give up to a 10%. Next, we have naval efficiency, which is this one surprisingly has the most with this 15% bonus here, and the other two are 10. Then we have air superiority. The one over here on the left, strategic destruction, has a max of 35. The middle one has 25, and the one all the way to the right has 35. Agility, 10% for fighters, 10% for heavy fighters, which I think is this one. Yes, it is. This one over here has 20%, but it only applies towards casts, which I'm trying to find to show you guys really quick. Yeah, right here. It just applies the agility bonus to cast planes only. So that's kind of a 50-50 shot if you really care about that or not. It just means that your cast might be able to take out some inner warfighters. That's really all it means. And then finally we have the one over here to the right, which is a 20% bonus for fighters and 20% bonus for heavy fighters, which is... I'm looking for it. It's really early on, I thought. It's over here, trust me. Hold on here. I know it's over here. There it is. So this one right here, it gives 20% agility for bonus for fighters and heavy fighters. Next, we have strategic bombing, which on the left gives an astounding 70% damage. That means that if you got all of these, I'm including this one and this one though in this list, so really max of 50%, that's still a plus 50% bonus for strategic bombing. So if you're doing 100 damage a day, you could go up to 150 damage a day if you're using strat bombers. So let's go ahead and talk about fighters. Which doctrine has the biggest bonus for fighters? In my opinion, it's going to be operational integrity. First off, it gives the most fighter detection. Second, it gives the most interception bonuses. Then it gives the most air superiority bonus. Well, actually almost as much. You get the same amount of air superiority with strategic destruction, but you still get the most air superiority out of this one, if you want to say it like that, and you get the most agility bonuses. So if your main goal is to use fighters over everything else for air superiority, interception, shoot down bombers, everything else, you're going to want to use operational integrity. This would be perfect for nations that have a really good ground army and don't really need to worry about assisting it in combat and would rather just get air superiority over the enemy. And that's really about it. Maybe they've got, they've got some casts in here bonuses too, so it's kind of, you can take it or leave it, but this one right here on the right is more designed for using fighters. Now we'll talk about which one is more designed for casts, which is really obvious, and that's going to be battlefield support. It gives a 40% ground support bonus. I hate motorcycles around here so much. All they do is come in at midnight and just go nuts. Anyway, so it grants a 40% combat bonus for your cast, which is absolutely massive. It gives a 25% air superiority bonus, so it's the absolute lowest air superiority bonus, has the lowest intercept bonus, but it does have the second most biggest bonus for tactical bombers and strategic bombing, but the strategic bombing is only for CAS, I'm pretty sure. Nope, here it is. But there's one for CAS in here. Yeah, 10% right there. So this one is more designed if you're going to be using CAS and you already have a huge advantage in aircraft type, like fighter types, I guess. If you're way over the enemy in fighters, you have like fighter 3s and they have fighter 1s, then you might be able to go down here if you don't have that great of a ground army. And then that just leaves which is best for bombers, which is only one. That's going to be strategic destruction. Now this one does have pretty much the second most bonuses for fighters. So it has a 35% air superiority bonus, 30% intercept bonus, and then it's got a 1 naval efficiency bonus right there. It's got 10% fire detection, which is the lowest number, surprisingly. And then finally, escort, which is 25%, so I don't know how well that would actually work. So, final verdict, strategic bombing, CAS, fighters. I know it says right here on the right for this that tactical bombers are flexible, can perform both ground support and regular bombing. Operational integrity grants the absolute biggest and best bonus for fighters out of all 3 doctrines. So, I know most people came here for that. This is going to be the doctrine you want if you're going to be using fighters more than anything. If you only care about fighters, you could care less about strategic bombing, you could care less about CAS bonuses, this is what you want. If you do care about bombing and you also want fighter bonuses, then you could go down strategic destruction, but battlefield support should only be used if you have a major advantage in fighter aircraft, like you plan on keeping a really good advantage in fighter aircraft, and you want bonuses to engage in ground targets. So, all in all, probably more than likely, this one over here is going to be designed for any nation that wants fighters like the United States, well, not the United States, but United Kingdom and Germany. This one over here, strategic destruction, probably be for the United States, maybe even Russia. I don't know. Russia's probably going to want this one, but then Germany, I guess, could also do this one. But if I were you, if you want fighters more than anything, if you want the best bonuses for fighters, which in my opinion give the best bonuses in combat anyway, even without CAS, you want operational integrity. So guys, hopefully you enjoyed this video, and remember to subscribe if you are interested in more of these kind of content type of videos. Thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Stay awesome.